What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So it's that time again that we start talking about a government shutdown, potential for a government shutdown. We are less than a week away from a government shutdown, and the Speaker Johnson, doesn't have a plan set forward yet. We've heard some different things thrown out there, but we don't have anything concrete. It looks like what they're going to need to do is a continued resolution. We don't know how long that continued resolution is going to last. Will it be January? Will it be April? Will they have this ladder system that they're talking about? We don't know exactly what they're going to do. We don't know if they have the votes. So potentially on November 17th will be the last day that they can get this budget together. If they can't get it together November 17th, November 18th, we're looking at a government shutdown. So I want to talk a little bit about this. And I want to go a little deeper because the argument right now is we need to cut our deficit. We can't keep adding to our national debt. And so at the end of this video, I'm going to show you some information from Mike Johnson, Speaker Johnson, and how he has voted in the past, and has he grown the debt. And so we're going to talk about that as well, but we'll wait till the end to talk about that. But before we get started with everything, please, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, and then click all. By clicking all, you'll get notified anytime we post a video. We do daily videos here, so by clicking the bell notification and clicking all, you should be getting updated every day. And just a reminder, thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter and Threads, you can at the TEC Show Live. So on Twitter, or we'll call it X, I've finally gone over 100 followers. So I'm pretty happy about that. I never really was on Twitter before, so I just kind of started it. So I'm glad that I'm getting at least a response. You guys are liking it. And I'll start posting more on X. I keep wanting to call it Twitter. It is Twitter in my mind, because when you type in Twitter in a Google search, X comes up. So I'll start posting more on there. And what I'm going to start doing more of is I'm going to start doing more of the headlines that are out there. As a matter of fact, that's what we're going to take a look at first before we even get started. And so NPR has a headline here: Congress has no clear plan to avoid a government shutdown in 1 week. Then we have, actually, it's AP here, so Associated Press. New Speaker Mike Johnson grasps for a funding plan with a government shutdown rapidly approaching. CNN, their headline is, House Republicans struggle with the government funding as shutdown looms. And then we have Mike Simpson. And I wanted just to put this on here just because I want to give you guys more of a perspective of what's going on when it comes to the Congress people. So he is saying the House has passed 7 fiscally responsible appropriations bills. Okay. So they passed 7. They need to pass a total of 12. So there's some appropriation bills that they need to pass. If they don't pass all 12, then it doesn't mean anything anyway. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what it means just to pass these appropriation bills in the House. Okay. House GOP is restoring regular order and delivering results for the American people. My colleagues and I are committed to enacting bills that reduce spending and keep our government open. Okay, so I want to talk about what Representative Simpson's saying. So just so you understand what's going on, is they passed these appropriations bills in the House. They still need to pass the Senate. And what's not happening is we're not getting a negotiation back and forth with the House and the Senate. So all the House is doing is saying, okay, you know what? I like this appropriation bill. We're going to go ahead and pass this. We're not going to talk to the Senate. We're just going to pass it and send it over there. If they want to, change it, they can make changes and then send it back to us. That's pretty much what's going to happen, because the Senate has already said that these appropriations bills are dead on arrival. So part of being a congressperson, part of being a lawmaker, is you need to negotiate. You need to negotiate with the other side. You can't just say, this is the way it's going to be, here it is, deal with it. No, you have to actually negotiate. And when you have split government, it's more important that you negotiate, because you're not going to get anything done if you don't. And so Representative Simpson shouldn't be taking a victory lap. Oh, we passed 7 appropriations bills. It means nothing, because it has to get through the Senate, and then the president has to sign off on it. And so you need to get behind closed doors, negotiate this out, and find something that both sides can agree to. That's what you're there for, to represent the American people. So you can't just say this is the way it's going to be and that's it. So very, very interesting just to see him tweet that. But right now we're facing another government shutdown because Congress, the House mainly, hasn't put anything forward that could get votes on both sides. That's the reality. So even if they pass the 7 appropriations bills It hasn't gone to the Senate, but they would still need to pass, what, 5 more appropriations bills? They haven't done that yet. And they've tried to pass the remaining 5 appropriations bills, but they can't. They don't have the votes. They don't have enough Republicans to vote for those bills. So what does that mean? That means that we're probably going to have to see a continued resolution. Now, will it be just that continued resolution until January, or will we see some type of a laddered system where, let's say, the 7 appropriations bills that they've already passed, that will be a part of, they need to have a deadline for that to pass the Senate. And if it doesn't pass the Senate, then we're going to see a partial shutdown. We don't know. We don't know what's going on. But I wanted to talk more about the spending, because you hear politicians like Speaker Johnson, he's out there right now saying, we spend too much money, we spend too much money. I would agree with him. You guys spend too much money. And I'm not talking about just the Democrats. I'm talking about the Republicans as well. I'm talking about the Speaker as well. The Speaker spends too much money. Now, let me show you this. And I thought this was really interesting, because whenever you hear these fiscally conservative politicians talk about spending and how we need to cut our deficit and we need to cut the national debt, all this stuff, when you hear this, all you need to do is look at their record, and you'll see something much different than what they're saying. Because they might say, yes, our debt we're at $33 trillion. We need to cut that. And every year we're spending more and more. We need to stop doing that. But then when you look at their voting record. And so let's look at Speaker Johnson's voting record in the last administration. I mainly want to focus on the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, but let's just read this whole thing. It says Johnson is a close ally of former President Donald Trump and supported many of his legislative priorities, including the American Health Care Act of 2017 and the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017 as well. This is the one I really want to focus on, okay? The main reason that I want to focus on that is I'll show you here. So it says, on December 22nd, 2017, President Donald Trump signed into law the so-called, and this is, okay, this slants left, okay? I want to say that right now, but just understand, we're looking at the amounts, the money, how much it's costing, okay? And this has been backed up, and I have more information on this. But it says the so-called Tax Cut and Jobs Act, a $1.9 trillion tax bill favoring corporations and wealthy Americans. At its heart is a large cut in the corporate tax rate, okay? So this bill had major cuts for corporations, tax cuts for corporations. Now, this could be a good thing. However, in this situation, it wasn't a good thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so how did the TCJA, okay, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, affect the federal budget outlook? The Tax Cut and Jobs Act cut taxes substantially from 2018, and it goes through 2025. So we're still in this time frame here. The resulting deficit will add $1 to $2 trillion. We already know the previous little information that I read here from the Center for American Progress said 1.9 trillion. So it's going to be between 1 and 2 trillion to the federal debt. So it will add money to our federal debt, according to officials' estimates. Okay, and this is the Policy Center. So this is a different organization that's saying this. And so why would they do this? Why would they provide these tax cuts for corporations? And we've heard a lot about this. You know, you have Republicans, they want the tax cuts for the wealthy is what they'll say. The tax cuts for corporations, the wealthy people. And then when you look at Democrats, they're okay with tax cuts, but they want it for the middle class, working class, and the poor. And so there's a different approach. One is if you're giving tax cuts, and let me show you the best way I can do this is just showing an illustration here. But if you're giving tax cuts to corporations, what a corporation could do is they could say, okay, well, you know what? We have a little bit more money, so we can increase wages, or we can hire more employees, which they very rarely do. And when it comes to increasing wages, they really want to pay people what they think the people are worth, their employees. Okay, they don't want to pay them more than what they're worth, because then they'll get into problems financially if they do something like that. And so if you give these corporations tax cuts, these are some things that they can do. Can this grow the economy? Absolutely. If you hire more people, then you grow the economy. Why? Because you have more people working, more people making money. That improves our economy because the more people that are working, they're going out and they're spending money. And then when they're wherever they're spending money, those companies are expanding. And if you keep expanding, then you're helping our economy. So it could absolutely work. And now also on that same token, when it comes to raises, if you provide raises for employees, they have a little bit more money, they might buy a car, they might go and spend money in different places. That's going to help our economy as well. Now we have to be careful with inflation because that can be a result of if you're paying employees more, if you're hiring more employees, people are spending and spending, that could raise the price of products. So that's something that you have to be careful with too. But one thing that we also need to talk about is demand. A company will not hire more people if there's no demand for the product. So let's say you have a pizza parlor and you're serving pizzas and you have your local community coming in and buying pizzas. Now I've given this example before, but I just want to simplify it as much as possible. So you have a local community coming in, buying your pizzas, and it's just word of mouth. People know that this pizza place is good because everyone in the community likes this pizza. Now, let's say this pizza parlor gets on Instagram, gets on social media, and they start doing promos there, and people outside of the community start to see that people like this pizza. And so now you have people coming from all over to get this pizza. And so now you have lines out front of this pizza parlor. And so what is the pizza parlor going to do? They need to hire more people. They might even open up a different store, a few different stores, just to accommodate all the people that want this pizza. And so that's a supply and demand situation. But just because you get tax cuts doesn't mean that you're going to hire more employees. You're only going to hire more employees if the demand picks up. If the demand picks up, yes, you're going to hire more employees because you're going to need more employees. But that's the only time that you hire more employees. Now, an argument could be made that if you give tax cuts and let's say they provide raises to the people working there, those people spend more, well, then you could increase demand in certain areas because those people are going out. And let's say when it comes to pizza, let's say if a family can't really afford to get pizza every week, but if they get a raise, now they have a little bit more discretionary spending and they can go out and go to the pizza parlor and stuff like that. So that could increase demand. So those are some of the things that we need to think about. Now, what companies like to do is they like to hold on to that money just in case they need it in the future, an emergency situation. And so they're going to hold on to a little bit. They might give some to their investors. They might give some to the executives in the corporation, but they're going to try to hold on to that money. And then also they're going to look at upgrades because a corporation will think, okay, you know what? I have a little extra money now because of these tax cuts. Let me spend that money on upgrades. And going back to the pizza parlor example, you might not need to hire as many people. You could upgrade the ovens. So you still need some people, but let's say you upgrade the ovens, they're larger, they're automated, where all the person has to do is just put the dough on the tray and it puts the toppings on and just does everything for them. They don't have to do all that. So now instead of having 2 or 3 people working this oven, you only need one person to work the oven. And so they could look at that. And that's what companies really like to look at, because upgrading their systems, it'll cost them money up front, but in the future, they're not paying salaries. These ovens aren't calling in sick. These ovens don't ask for raises. And so they'll look for those upgrades. And so in the situation that we're looking at, and that we were looking at back in 2017 with Speaker Johnson, he voted for this bill. It passed. It's adding to our national debt. And this is the problem that I have with lawmakers that come out and say, we need to cut spending. We need to cut spending. Yes, I agree. You need to cut spending, but you also need to cut spending when you're in power. And when they were in power and when they had the opportunity to make cuts, they didn't make cuts. They actually grew the debt. And that's what I have a problem with, because now we're looking at a government shutdown and they're using the excuse of we spend too much money. Yes, you spend too much money, but you know what? We could have 1.9 trillion less in our national debt if you didn't pass this bill. That did nothing but add to the debt, because that's what a lot of the corporations did. They just kept the money. And then what did we see in 2020? We saw COVID-19. So now they had a little bit of money in reserves, and then they got even more money, because that's the way it works. Federal government saw that and they said, okay, well, we need to, help everybody. So we'll send out stimulus checks. We'll send out PPP funding. We'll send out all this money to help keep our economy afloat. So corporations actually got tax cuts in 2017, and then they got money in 2020. The American people, we got stimulus checks in 2020. We didn't benefit from that tax cut. At least most people didn't benefit from the tax cut. And we saw companies starting to lay people off in 2020. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about this because I think it's important. If politicians want to be fiscally conservative, that's a good thing. I don't have any problem with that. Not overspending is a good thing, but you need to do it at all times. You can't just be selective. You can't say, oh, former President Trump is there and I'm a Republican, so we're going to spend as much as we want to spend. You can't say that. And then when a Democrat comes into office, you say, oh, we need to start cutting. Okay. And it goes both ways. But I'm just saying in this example, because Speaker Johnson is really talking about we need to cut spending, we need to cut spending. Well, you had an opportunity to cut spending and you chose not to. And one more thing, when it comes to tax cuts, if you provide tax cuts, you're taking some of the revenue that the federal government takes in, you're taking some of that away and giving it to corporations, or you can even be giving it to working class, middle class people, but you're taking money from the federal government. And so they're not going to be able to pay down a debt if you're taking money from them. And we already know we're running deficits every year, so we're still borrowing every year. But if you do tax cuts, we're borrowing even more every year. So you're growing the national debt much faster. And so that's just something else to think about. If we really want to tackle this problem, we need to face the reality tax cuts aren't going to do it. And I know the argument will be, well, it'll grow our economy, it'll grow our economy. Well, it hasn't worked. We saw the tax cuts in 2017. They helped our economy, but we're still going to be in debt as a result of them. And in 2025, you have lawmakers right now, lawmakers talking about extending these tax cuts. And so if you extend the tax cuts, it's going to be even more money that's going to be added to the debt. And so we'll have to see. That's going to be an argument that we'll see in 2024, because 2025 it's going to expire. What are lawmakers going to be saying now? Oh, yeah, we need to continue with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act because it is doing what? It's adding to our debt. That we know that. So I don't know what the real argument is going to be for continuing those. But if they can't extend it, then the taxes will go back to where they were prior to 2017, which will be good because more money will be collected. So I want to know what you guys think about all this. So let me know down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.